Well,
Right. Go ahead. Good
Yeah, I mean,
evening,
yeah.
everybody.
What's up? What's up?
What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? We're back for another episode. As y'all can see, El Jefe is over here. Um,
appreciate it.
he over here being extra. I don't even know what to say to him. I don't know what to say about him right now, but he doing the most in a lot of ways. Um, yes, it's about to be lit. Jeffrey, you guys, please send good vibes to Jeffrey and Epiphany right now. That's all I can say. We wish them well, and my priority is to take for them to take care of themselves. That's most and foremost. So please, please, please send good vibes their way. So
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about round two tonight of we started this conversation with why it's so hard for black men and black women to love each other, to connect each other with each other. And if it's so hard that we started talking about it, if it's so hard, then 9 times out of 10, it's slim pickings, even though the narrative about it is really a lie. It's not true. There are quite a few black men and black women who do commit, who do have successful relationships, who do get married and all that good stuff. But let's say it is hard for you to connect with another black man or black woman, but you just really want to be with a black man or black woman. Tonight's conversation, we continue on to see, is there ever a possibility or a time when you get back with your ex, when your ex becomes, an option, and what's the viability? Is it successful? Does it really work a second time around? So that's what we're getting into tonight. I already know how Jeffrey feels about this. At the end of our last conversation, he was like, absolutely not. You cannot build a future digging back into the trash. Um, but I think it just really depends on who you are, where you are in your life, because people mature over time. You know, 5, 10 years later, a lot can change. But then there's times when they probably, you know, still the same. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm gonna let you gentlemen y'all tag in and just what are y'all thoughts about, the X factor?
I personally don't take it as an issue because I do agree that people can mature over time. I mean, the person that I was in 2003 was not the person that I was in 2010, and is not the person that I am now. Because I do feel like people grow, people can mature, people can blossom, just definitely because of life experiences, wisdom, and just changing over time. So in terms of finding trash and digging for trash, you can find trash ahead of you. There's trash out there that you haven't even met yet. Um,
Absolutely.
but I think that in terms of rekindling things with an ex, it all depends. I mean, sometimes it can work, sometimes it doesn't. I think it depends on whether or not whoever was at fault can admit their fault and truly be apologetic and admitting culpability. But like I've said all the time, just regardless of who you are and who it is, part of a true apology is behavior change. You can come and say, "Hey, I'm sorry," all day. You can say you're sorry 1,000 times or 1,001 times. But for me, I've always stated that if I'm going to say I'm sorry, I'm also going to be able to demonstrate a behavior change so that whatever I did in the past, there's very low risk or some impossibility that's going to happen again based on these changes that I'm implementing in my life. And the
Right.
same goes for any woman. If you come and you tell me, "Hey, I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry I did A, B, and C, and then X, Y, and Z." Okay, if you're sorry, then how are you different than the woman I dated, 5 years ago? What changes have you made to demonstrate and illustrate that that's not a possibility again? Did you delete certain people off your social media? Did you stop
Right.
going to certain places that you were frequenting? Did you go back to school? Did you get a new job? Did you become better with money or so many other things? So if you come to me, if we're exes and we rekindle, we reconcile, and you're still the exact same person that you were when we were dating, then I do feel like, okay, this probably is a wrap. It's probably not going to work. So, but that's just my thoughts. Can it work? Absolutely, it can work. It can work. It can fail. It just depends on the people involved because you can fail in relationships with people that are in your future that you haven't even met yet.
Right, right. El Jefe, I don't even wanna. I don't even. You know what? I can't. I go
Listen,
ahead.
this weight loss had me feeling some kind of way, you know.
Oh gosh.
You look good, man.
Listen,
Man,
the
I'm
DMs about to
crying,
be
bro.
even more explosive.
Hey man, that's what we pray for.
You know what?
Uh, no, you know what? On a serious tip, Jeff made a comment last week that's very common with the younger generation. You
Right.
know, just below us. And I had some female friends this week where I asked that question who said, you know, once I'm done, I'm done. Oh, I don't go back. And all of that stuff is trendy and cool to say, right? But the reality is we champion some of those trends, but we really don't apply the good ones because
Right.
hindsight is 2020.
Right.
And so I was someone like that before. And I on another show I said something that I didn't evaluate till I thought about how it came off. I told one of my friends, I was like, in every relationship I've left them. And that was something that I almost like I left them.
Right.
And I heard it and it's
Like
like,
it's a badge of honor.
yeah, you know, and I was like, you know how effed up that sound? Because not saying that the relationship didn't garner some separation, it was the fact that a lot of times we run from things that can be, we run from work, I would say. Sometimes we run from situations that, you know, with a little more commitment or time or effort could be better. So I'm actually going to piggyback and say that, like for myself right now, I think that against the trend. I think most people should because the thing is, a lot of people are in relationships and they'll leave someone. They'll leave someone because they cheated, they're hurt, you know, broken. And I'm not talking about situation where it's domestic violence or stuff like
Right.
that, but situations where I'm just disappointed and hurt, but you still love the person
Yeah.
and you separate and then you go to someone else, but your heart is still with the other person.
Right.
And we laughed at Will and Jada, and they were good for a trend. But you know, I commended him at the end of the day. If you have that much love for each other, man, I was kind of impressed because
Right.
I do think that if you love someone and you know that's who you're in love with, you're kind of cheating yourself. I think you should exhaust all measures before you go on and move on, which men tend to do. Where our parents, our older men would tell us, you get over a woman by getting a new woman, you
Yeah.
know. And I think that's robbed us a little because oftentimes we're running situation to situation without closure, without unspoken conversations.
Right.
And in the end, you sit back and look back and say, well, I missed a few good people, or I missed some good friendships at the end of the day.
Right. I agree with you. I think that I think wholeheartedly you should exhaust your possibilities. Life is full of options. And again, who you were then is not who you are now. And the same thing goes for the other person. Now, with that said, there might be some tendencies that people have that I don't care how old they get, how much they mature, some stuff that they just can't let go because it's learned behavior. And they have to choose to want to unlearn that behavior. And sometimes when you go back and you start exploring those relationships again, that possibility, that opportunity, you find out that same learned behavior is still there. So it's kind of like, okay, they haven't. This is really the root of why we didn't work out the first time, because of this particular learned behavior that I just can't deal with. So I think that there are options, and I agree. You know, if we I think we want easy relationships. I really do. I think that most people, from what I understand in talking to people want the easy relationships. They don't want to do no work. They want, I think, because people see internet love, that is not real.
Definitely not real.
They don't see the work that goes into long, successful relationship. You want a 50, 60, 70-year relationship. Okay, that your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents had, but you don't want to put the work in that they did. Now, I'm not saying deal with some of the foolishness that they accepted. You know what I mean? We live in a totally different time, but they put in work. You know what I mean? And I think that that's the challenge that that a lot of people face, especially black men and black women, when it comes to loving and connecting with one another. The struggle then becomes, how much work are we willing to put into the relationship so that it can be successful? But I think also it's also knowing what it takes to be in a relationship. I think one of the things that you really spoke to, Horace, was you got to be mature. Like it really takes maturity to be out here dating and be in a relationship, whether you want to be married or whatever. I mean, some people are just lifelong daters, meaning I'm in a committed relationship, but I don't believe in marriage. Like Nia Long. I don't know if y'all saw that recent article with her where she said she don't believe in marriage. Like she doesn't get the whole concept of marriage and one person owning another person. I think that people have their philosophies, but they also, I think that there's a great misunderstanding about what it is to commit to a person. And maybe that's the struggle that we find. That's part of why black men and black women struggle.
Well,
go ahead, Horace.
Sorry, go ahead.
Which one?
Well, I was just going to add that, a lot of people don't really highlight or realize that a lot of people love the romance of a relationship, but they don't want the relationship. The meeting someone new, the date, and something new, but then they keep going into this rotation because it's all about the romance and the cloud nine times of the relationship. But the relationship, when it's time to put on your hat and do some work, a lot of people don't have it.
Right.
Well, right. Yeah. I mean, it's just a couple of things saying that it's easy.
Troy, we can't hear you, babe.
Can't hear me now?
No, something's wrong with your microphone. You sound like you're underwater. That might be better. No, that's worse.
You hear me now?
There you go. That's better.
Oh, I can't hear y'all.
Oh
I
God.
can't hear you now.
What about now?
No.
Wait a minute, you can hear me.
I can hear him. It's just low.
Yeah, it's really, really low.
Might be a short.
It might be a short, yeah, because I hear static. Okay. Always technical difficulties, but it's all good. I think that's Reginald. People who want just the romance and not the struggle, the process of love and relationship are not mature enough to be in a relationship. Absolutely. Reginald hit it on the head. It is. It's absolutely. It's about maturity. If you're not matured, you shouldn't be out here dating. That's just the reality of it. I do think that people are in love with the idea of love and romance, like Horace said. And I think that, again, when we say representation matters, it matters not just to Black people on TV, but the context within which we are seen and viewed on TV. And when we start talking about relationships, we got to start looking at Love and Hip Hop, 90 Day Fiance, all of these different shows that really like Love and Huntsville, the Love and Marriage in Huntsville or whatever. All of these different shows, how they represent or depict Black love and relationships and how we deal with challenges that we face when we face in our relationships. Because at the end of the day, it's not always going to be roses, like you say. But if we don't see a healthy way to deal with that stuff, we're going to automatically be ready to give up so quickly.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yay!
All right, I got several pair of earbuds hanging around here. Some are older than others, but to what I was saying earlier, to supplement what Horace was saying, it's very easy to fall in love with the concept of marriage or romance, but when it comes to the actual application, it's a different scenario. The application is the part where there are going to be some good days, going to be some bad days, going to be some days you love each other, going to be some days where you're on cloud nine, going to be some days that you can't stand looking at the other person, going to be some days where you can't stand their smell.
Right.
You can't stand being in the same room with them. It's all a cycle, and just understanding that part of the entire cycle involves ups and downs, peaks and valleys.
Right.
And you have people who, when they sign up to be in a relationship or commit a relationship or marriage, they really are only signing up to be a part of the good times. Like, okay, I could be married to you as long as we got money in the bank, as long as you're in shape, as long as your hair is on point, as long as your looks are intact, as long as your weight is a certain way. Some people sign up for relationships because they're fixated on this now image of how things look right now when things are all good, when things are social media perfect. We take great pictures, we post them, we get plenty of likes and hearts. That's the part of the relationship, or that's the part of the marriage that a lot of people are consciously signing up for. So when the downside comes around, when people do gain weight, or when someone does lose a job, or when someone does get a diagnosis, then they're looking for the back door. That's when they realize, okay, this marriage thing, this
Right.
ain't what I signed up for. And you don't realize marriage encompasses all that. And
Everything.
it encompasses everything. If you're
Right.
not willing to go down that journey, and that journey is going to have some smooth sailing and some bumpy roads and some rough seas. If that's not you, admit that. Now, I don't know if that's Nia Long's testimony.
Right.
I can applaud anybody, and I do mean anybody, any man or woman. I can applaud anybody to be self-aware, to say, you know what, marriage is just not my cup of tea.
Right.
I don't want to be um, tied spiritually or financially with just one person for the rest of life. I can't be mad at someone to be that damn self-aware to where
Right.
they would admit that, because imagine someone finding that out about themselves while they're married. So I can't be mad
Yeah,
at someone.
that's a lot of work to work through.
It's a lot of work, right? So for
Yeah.
someone to make that admission to themselves without being married, I can applaud them, because at the end of the day, you don't have to be married to enjoy companionship. You don't have to be
Right.
married to enjoy awesome, great sex.
Right.
Okay. You can have so many things without marriage. If marriage is not in the cards for you, that's okay, because marriage is not a requirement.
Right. I agree. I think that again, I think people's perception of what it is to be in a committed relationship varies. And I think for her, after reading the article, for her, I think it's just a matter of just understanding, like, her thing is, I don't need basically a piece of paper to validate my love for you. You know, she's been a mother and pretty much a wife to this dude for like ever. She ain't going nowhere. They ain't going nowhere. That's it. So in her mind, I don't need to come into alignment with tradition or what everybody else is doing. If whatever works for you is what works for you. And I think
Absolutely.
that's part of the challenge. I think a lot of times too, people focus too much on the fickle. But I think, again, that's what representation matters, because that's all we see on TV is the fickle. But the reality is folks gonna gain weight. Like Horace, when we first started doing these conversations, Horace talked about he was, dating this girl for the longest time. He had a car accident, gained 30 pounds, and she was like, ghost. Like, okay, were you with me for me or because of how I look? Like, the reality is, when you single, life's still gonna happen. You're gonna have low points when you single. So why wouldn't you have low points when you in a relationship? And why is the expectation that things are going to be different in a relationship? Because life is going to happen.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that you have some people who aren't signing up for that, and that's unfortunate. That's where we talked about that's the distinction between maturity and immaturity.
Right.
Because when you are mature, you understand, like, look, I'm signing up to be with you for the ups, the downs, the pretties, the uglies, the thins, the not so thin to weights, everything, because life happens. Life happens to the best of us.
Right.
And so, like I said, at the end of the day, they don't build monuments, they don't give accolades, they don't give honor to people who stick around when things are good. Anybody can do that. Any asshole can stick around when you got money in the bank and you look like a fitness model. I'm not going to give you high praise and honor because you stuck around when things were dope.
Right.
Now, if you can stick around when that person has cancer and can't wipe their own ass, or you got to push them in a wheelchair, or they lose their job, they no longer making six figures, they got to drive Uber, then you're saying something. Then, then I'm going to look at you like, okay, you about something.
I agree.
You may be a real person.
Right.
But that, a lot of people, I've certainly seen that where, okay, it's like this is a bad joke. Way back in the 90s when I used to watch the Steve Harvey show, when Steve Harvey had the high flat top.
Yeah. On TV when Mr. Hightower or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, when he was Mr. Hot, and I had hair too back then. But anyway, he made a bad joke. He said, if you want to get rid of a black woman, just tell her you lost your job.
Yeah.
This was 1997 when I was a senior in high school and I heard that joke.
Yeah.
I restated that joke several times in Ringside as satire, but the sad part is, and it's not just applicable to black women, it can be applicable to anybody. You have a lot of people, you tell them, hey babe, I lost my job today. Trust me, they're gonna be looking for the back door. For some people who work there for the real reasons, you tell them you lost your job or hey,
some adversity. Yeah,
some obstacle. Hey babe, look, I gained 10 pounds, 15 pounds. Trust me, they're gonna be out the door.
I agree. Towns, what you got?
And when that happens, be happy. Be happy
because it frees you up for the right person.
It frees you up. Be happy that you found that out about that person.
Yep. Towns.
No. I want to correct one thing. It wasn't that the person. It was, imagine being Troy Vaughn and every woman is into you. You know, outside and in, and then you have a car accident and now everybody treats you like you Steve Urkel. So that's what I actually went through.
Wow, that's terrible.
But that's reality. It goes back to what I say all the time about people saying they're looking for, there's no good guys out here. There's a lot of good guys out here. They're just not in the body frame that your fantasy has envisioned you or sold you on. Like, he has to look like this. And
but explain the women that are with with that are with Rick Ross or what's the guy that says and another one, that guy.
That's elevation.
DJ Khaled.
DJ Khaled. Like, you know what I mean? Like, explain
that's career plan. That's something different. But I want to say this is the most vain generation I've ever met because, everyone, everyone always have wanted to look their best. We've had our trends in our era, but this generation under us, they will spend their last dime to look like $1 million, and character-wise, asset-wise, they have nothing to offer.
Right.
But you got some jokers out there that'll pick them. You know what I mean? Right. Arm candy is everything to me right now. Relationship, I'll evaluate later. But as far as our generation, a good stat is most people that get remarried, those marriages last.
Right.
So that says something to the correction. Not saying that, hey, they didn't love the first wife, but saying, you know what, I can't get this other person back, but in this second marriage,
I'm gonna make it work.
I'm gonna make it work. I know what it takes, because a lot of men don't know. Like, when I got married, I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't even have that many good examples. Right. I told you before, I would have guys that you speak to and say, ask them about marriage, and they acted like they were, like it was a death sentence. So, I do believe, again, if you can be humble enough and be courageous enough to say, because we all feel rejection, but you can be courageous enough to say, hey, I didn't get it right the first time, but I must admit my heart is still with you.
Right.
If you ever look this way, I swear I'll give you everything I have. I think more people need to have those conversations instead of I'm over there with her, you over there with him, and knowing we still thinking about each other every moment of the day.
I agree. I want to throw something in because this happened to me.
The Nigerian man in your inbox?
No. This happened to me where in this particular situation, there was someone else interfered that I didn't know about and the other person didn't know about. So it's kind of like, you have people who are on the outside of your relationship looking in and they're jealous, but you don't know. And then they weave in their little web of deceit to keep you apart. And then next thing you know, years later, you find out that, even though it wasn't like, for me, in this instance, it was kind of a college situation. You graduate and, you kind of go and you lose touch. And when you intentionally try to reach out and find this person, that's when you find out that, people are really trying to keep you apart. Then fast forward, by the time you find out what happened somebody's married, somebody's in a relationship, you're not available, whatever the case may be. And it's like the X factor is no longer a factor, but it would have been had there not been that interference. And so I think that in some regards, it becomes an issue of timing, because timing is everything. And then sometimes when you find out, it's kind of like, oh, I really want to wring your neck. But at the same time, then you see that karma, but like, see, that's why you ain't got no successful relationships, because you was over here weaving your devilment, and your devilment came back to you. But it happens, and it's real, and you miss so much time, or you think you miss so much time. And so sometimes what coulda, shoulda, woulda been is no longer an option because, you know, time, circumstance, situations. But you know, you just kind of look at it, you be like, you know what, it's so sad that in this regard, you got Black love that's thriving, and then another Black person, and this was a Black person, comes along, and you interfering with that. So I think that that's another reason why sometimes Black men and Black women struggle to connect and love, not because they don't want to, but outside interference.
And you know what? That's you're gonna have outside. Oh, sorry. Go ahead for that.
No, I was going to say quickly that I actually went through that. And now the thing is, my arrogance didn't identify it like I should have. Wow. If I could go back, if I've learned anything, my relationship would be this right here. Because I think it's more prominent with women having that problem, because as a dude, there's always a dude that's going to shake our hand that's trying to backdoor and screw our woman. Men know that. You know what I mean? Women are a little more strategic. Women will play to be the friend, my sister girl, my prayer buddy, and all of that. And she is trying to destroy your relationship for other reasons.
Just for the sake of destroying it.
Your dude could have curved her before or anything. Y'all a little more advanced than that. But that does happen a lot, and it's sad. But if I learned anything, I said it, but I didn't really reinforce it. Keep this right here. I don't care what y'all hear. You two in a couple.
Right. That's right.
My dad always said, if somebody come try to tell you something about your woman, punch him in the mouth. So we don't go for no violence, but I really allowed myself to be victim of that.
Right.
And it was both ways in a relationship. I've learned that lesson.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly, 1,000%. I've realized the hard way, and moving forward, I certainly know that it is best sometimes to keep, and in this instance, in this context, I would definitely say keep social media out of your relationship.
Yes.
You know, don't always feel compelled to post, you know, pictures of you and your significant other and you and your spouse. And I had to find that out the hard way, because now I do have a policy, you know, based on people who come to my Instagram or come to my Facebook. You know, it's like, I'm not trying to give away if I'm dating someone. I could be single, I could be in a relationship. If you're only looking at it from a Facebook standpoint, it's none of your business.
Right.
You know, because I've already been down that road. I know how petty and childish and immature social media can be. I know how people can be when they envy what you have, or they're jealous, or they don't feel you deserve who you're with. And people will definitely get messy. People will definitely do any and everything they can to infiltrate your relationship, even if that means spreading lies, spreading gossip, putting thoughts in your head and stuff like that. I've been through all that. I could write a book on it. And so I tell people from, you know, my standpoint, if you want to know whether or not I'm in a relationship, it's one thing, you know, we can talk about it offline, or you can ask me in private. But as far as social media is concerned, social media doesn't have to know who I'm fucking, or you know, who I'm dating, or who I'm engaged to, or who or whatever. It's like, it's none of social media's business. And so I do that strategically, because I feel like, you know, I'm gonna take a cue from, you know, what I've been through. I'm not gonna go through the same thing I've been through before, because you have people, men and women, who don't want to see happy relationships. You know, misery loves company. And so they see couples share profile pictures or holding hands or engagement photos. That bothers some people. That rubs some people the wrong way.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've certainly been the victim of stereotyping, and you know, people would take stereotypes and run with them and turn a stereotype into a fact, even without evidence.
Right.
And so
I agree.
I agree with Horace 1,000%. Like, you know, learn from your past, but definitely move forward and march effectively.
I
Dr. H,
agree. Yeah.
I was going to say this is something that I think I've told my friends because I was watching someone's blog and they were talking about the ratio of men to women, and I was showing someone like you have this one woman, it's a group of them, there's 6, 7 women in this group, and they're hanging. This is their clique, right? But none of them are married. All of them are single. And I was
Right.
saying people don't really realize. I was telling her, I'm like, those might be your friends, but all you guys are competing, whether they admit it or not.
Yeah.
Everybody's still chasing that ring. You
Right.
know, that's like some guys in the NBA. We can play together, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to get that ring. So some of that advice or some of that counseling you're getting from your own girl might be a little slanted. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
at the end of the day, there's only so many guys that they deem are the quality guys out there. So you have to, almost like Troy said, move a little more strategic, keep yourself private, because
Right.
whether you admit it or not, there's people out here being real messy and strategic to try to get what you want.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Reginald hit the nail on the head. He said people aren't happy and don't want anyone else happy that they find a threat. And the reality is that's the truth. I mean, it's the God, that's the gospel. And it's sad, it's unfortunate, but that is it's the crab in the pot mentality that we have been dealing with in the Black community, especially for a long time. And I think that, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know what it's going to take to kind of undo that toxic thinking and behavior, because we are weaponized against ourselves. We see ourselves, unfortunately, as a threat, as competition. And it's like, y'all, it's 8 billion people on this planet. Are we seriously fighting over one person? Or are we seriously thinking that this one person is the only person on God's earth for us? Like, there are options. Life is full of options, but we don't want to do the work necessary to explore those options or to get out there and take a look and see what's available. And I think that that's part of the struggle. And again, I hate to say this, but again, what we see constantly, this is why I say representation matters, really feeds into behavior. There have been literal behavioral studies about this kind of stuff, which is why subliminal programming, what you see on TV, is constantly a big issue. Conrad says we're dealing with the ripples of slavery. Absolutely. And trying to undo that thinking, as toxic thinking that's embedded and handed down from generation to generation. And if we don't control the narrative as it relates to media, we're going to keep getting this same stuff, even on social media. So I'm glad that you brought that up, Troy, about social media, because the reality is we're looking at this stuff like it's not real. It's totally fake. And as much as we know that it's fake, people still buy into it and get into it. The desperation to have what others want. Absolutely. And I don't understand it. I think that we want something so much, but it's like what you said earlier, Horace, is that people fantasize about the idea of love and romance because we see these beautiful little pictures on Instagram and Pinterest about people are the roses and all this kind of stuff and all of this beautiful. Who gonna clean that up?
Right.
Like,
I mean, it's no different.
That ain't every day.
You can look at Instagram. You can get on Facebook and see engagement photos or professional photography photos of couples and realize, and I'm like, okay, I want that. It looks pretty, it looks romantic. You don't know what that couple's been through. You don't know the work, the time, how much they've toiled, how much they've endured, sacrificed, compromised. You don't know what they've done.
Listen,
and so
you don't know if she ripping off doors. Okay, we done seen in the past week somebody that done blew up a car, done set a car on fire. Like she thought she was Angela Bassett and didn't do that thing right and then got arrested. We done seen a woman with so much aggression, she done ripped the screen door. The brother ran for his life, so he already knew. Then I just saw a video today, a woman videoing herself with a knife, tearing
the
up.
dumbest thing in the world. Tearing
up a dude's car, the seats in the car.
That was a woman?
Yeah, no one can figure out, no one understood whether or not that was a woman or a man, because I'm like,
I'm
the
trying
main
to figure
thing I
that
thought
out too,
about
but it was, I don't know what it was, but all it was is, but what we're saying is, it's just
stupidity.
like, the truth is, it's like Reginald said, life isn't perfect behind the front door, and that's true. Like Karen McCray, life is not perfect in front or behind the door. We don't know what's happening. People show you what they want you to see. You have to understand that social media is a soundbite, and people are living lives as sound bites, and your life is not meant to be lived as a soundbite. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was gonna say that is maybe the threshold right there. That may be the solution right there. But people have to be open to know that social media is not real.
Right.
Listen, you know, I have two personalities on social media, you know,
Right.
and you would be blown away how many people think that they know me from social media. And I'll sometimes tell people, like, if you can't get me on a phone call, a text, or been to my house, you don't know me. But the reality is,
absolutely, Horace.
Listen, you will only get a fraction of my personality.
That is not complete. That is some of me.
I'm sorry.
That is, I'm gonna know. Horace hit the nail on the head, and I wish I could post that in Ringside and tell people, you know, what you see as far as my personality in Ringside. Yeah, those are snippets of my personality, but we're talking about 1 or 2 tracks on a 20-track CD. I'm like, you don't know the whole thing. Like you just know certain snippets of what I'm allowing you to see, of what I'm intentionally sharing.
Life is not meant to be a soundbite, people.
Right. I'm like, if you have never broken bread with me, you never had a drink with me, you ain't never smoked with me, you never been to my house, then trust me, you don't know the real me. I'm like, there's so much of my backstory that can explain and can shape why I do what I do, why I feel the way I feel, why I think the way I think. But if the only thing you know of me is the few comments you see of me at Ringside, then you don't really know me. You just know what I'm putting out there, and I can turn that around. I could say one thing on Tuesday and say something completely different on Wednesday if that's what I want. You know, if that's what I want you to see.
Right.
And here's the trap. But here's the trap to that. Look at the younger generation with the ladies. The young ladies most people are the flog. We used to call it flogging. You see the most beautiful girl.
You close to Memphis, aren't we? Say that too, flogging.
Yeah, bro. So, hey, so I'll see X amount of the chicks, like, they're in bathing suits all day, gorgeous bodies, but in reality, you're still in your 20s, 30s. It ain't really curved on you yet. But you in bathing suits all day, every picture you getting 1,000 likes, right?
Lori Harvey.
Back to this point, behind that Instagram page, what is there also to offer? There's nothing, right? But here's the lottery trap. Out of those million girls that are on Instagram all day, getting and got 200,000 followers because she got a cute body or she's showing her ass all day, 3 out of those will find a rapper to actually, you know, date them or make them famous. And it seems like that's what everybody's shooting for now, because, you know, you had a girl last week got the Lamborghini truck. I don't care what the details was, but you'll see 10,000 other girls look at that as gold. You hear that?
See, everybody's looking at Lori Harvey.
Bad. Okay, my point. Bad cars and all that. And I'm like,
people looking at Lori Harvey and like her life is goals, and this is no shade to her, but they look at that, and these young girls aspire for that, and it's like,
for Troy, those women, and I've said this to my friends, the women like that will say she's looking for a guy like this. But the reality is, the guy that has those things, other than me screwing you once, maybe twice, or keeping you on my arm for, you know, luxury, what do you offer me? You're a cute chick. But the dude that you after, the rapper, the doctor, the dude that actually got them that money,
they got 30 kids.
Offer him, because you're a dime a dozen to him.
Correct.
Well, I will, you know, I'm from Memphis, so Steve Harvey's wife,
Marjorie,
she's well known in Memphis.
I know.
Kingpin.
Listen, they pulled all that off the internet real fast.
That's the real boss.
Oh yeah. So that's why I learned. I got in trouble a few years ago by talking too greasy about Margie. So I kind of, I stopped talking about Margie. I look at it like, well, if you live in Memphis, you know Margie's backstory. It's like, you know what, Steve, you know, I applaud you on your success with Family Feud and everything you've done. I don't envy you for your marriage. You can keep that, because I definitely don't want I wouldn't want someone like. Well, anyway,
She
when
tough.
when the Bible, when the Bible says he who finds a wife find a good thing, I'm like, you don't always find a good thing. Sometimes you just finding someone who can spend all your money. That ain't a good thing, but I ain't the one to talk. So you ain't heard that from me.
Queen of the South. Every time I see her, I think of that show, Queen of the South.
But at the end of the day, you have a lot. Look, it's Instagram, it's social media. You got thousands upon thousands of Instagram models,
Right.
all posing the exact same way, all taking the exact same goddamn selfie, all looking the same way. Because I got to be perfectly honest. I mean, it gets to a point you see so many of them. It's all a blur. They all start looking alike. I'm like, okay, you've seen one, you've seen them all.
Yeah, you do.
Know? But they do it because they're doing it because they know
they're following a model.
It's like you set the trap, you wait for the right man.
It's a formula.
It's a formula. It's how formulas work because they see it work. They see certain thirst traps that they envy. Post the right picture, find the right rapper, or ball player, or entrepreneur, slide on their DMs, and boom. You got women who are high school dropouts living in multi-million-dollar mansions because they found the right man using the right thirst trap. So you're going to have a lot of women who are going to keep replicating that same model. They may have shit for brains, no goals, no ambition, but you take the right picture with the right bikini or the right bra and panties, you may have a man with some goals and aspirations, may slide in your DMs and boom, take you from the projects to the penthouse. And that's why so many people do it. In addition to the likes and hearts and the self-validation, I'm pretty because I got 200 likes.
Right.
So you're going to always have that. And, Godspeed to people that do that. That's their life. If they want to do that, hey, do you.
Right.
I kind of see through it. I mean, a woman who does something like that is a turn off for me because attention-seeking behavior, and that's what I think thirst trapping is attention-seeking behavior, is a huge turn off. I get so turned off by it.
Right.
Someone who does shit like that, it reeks of too much effort, and I automatically side eye. I'm like, no, that you definitely not going to be anybody's social life, but keep doing you.
I think age is definitely a huge factor in what we're talking about because our generation sees and views dating and relationships completely different than younger ones, and I think that plays a big factor in how Black men and Black women connect and find love and work through relationships because different generations are taught something different. And again, representation matters, whether it's on TV, the radio. We talked about the music and different stuff, but also just in what's been handed down from generations to generation. If grandma is now 30 or 40, what possibly is she teaching you? And that's no shade to it, but in an era where my grandma was 70 or 60, you know what I'm saying? 60 or 70 or even 80, or you had your great grandma to impart some wisdom to you as same things, your grandfather, your great grandfather. When you have that type of senior wisdom, people who have been there, done that, lived through some things, folks who have been through suffering, and I'm talking about when your relationship can survive civil rights.
Let's be honest. Grandma back then wasn't allowing daughter to be no hoe unless they just gave up on her. So grandma
the
back
standards
then,
and the standards and expectations were different. But again, I think a lot of it has to do with age. Grandma back then was 40.
Well, I mean, look at what you just said, age and timing. Because grandma back then, let's be honest, everybody. Let's pick this apart. Grandma didn't have social media. Grandma didn't have smartphones. Grandma didn't have no reality shows telling her what she should have because she's pretty or what she should have because she got a fat ass.
Right.
So the grandmamas back then, they didn't have what women today have, all these different influences, all these different things, all these different outside pressures telling them what you should have or what you need to have or what you deserve to have or what you, all this extra ancillary bullshit. And so, but at the end of the day, but I want to go back to the other side of that because people, even in ringside, people constantly reference grandmothers and mothers and saying, well, they stayed together for 50 plus years and that's the goal. Yeah, it's the goal. stand together 50, 60 years, that's a good thing, but it's not always, we can't automatically represent as baseline because you have a lot of grandmothers out there who would stand together because they didn't have any place to go.
Correct. They stayed through abuse. They stayed through some stuff because they didn't have no other choice.
They didn't have any choice. They couldn't afford to divorce. It's like, so you had a lot of our grandmothers out there. Trust me, and I'm not being specific to anybody, but there are a lot of people out there watching this right now. A lot of our grandmothers had to endure domestic violence, had to endure multiple.
You better say that.
Had to endure multiple outside kids. Why? Because the man made all the money. If you're not making any money, where are you gonna go? Where the hell are you gonna? How can you sustain a house, taxes, utilities, all that stuff, and you can't get a job? You have no skills.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of these grandmothers. So at the end of the day, yes, it is definitely admirable when you see a couple 90-some years old and they're like, oh, we've been together for 60 years, 70 years. I admire that, but at the end of the day, you do have certain instances where you have couples where, yeah, they're still together or they stay together all the time because they didn't have a choice. The grandmama, where the hell the grandmama gonna go?
Come on.
She only had two options: stay in an unfulfilling, unhappy marriage, or go be poor, or live on the street.
I gotta answer Reginald. Hold on, I gotta answer Reginald. He said, "Wait, really? Yes, my mom." My mom, this has really happened. My grandmother really did do this to me and my sister. She woke us up at 2 a.m. and took us down to the red light district to show us the prostitutes and what they were doing and how they had to make a living and to let us know that this is not what you want for yourself. Like, she showed us what real life was on the other side. We saw them cracked out. We saw the pimps. We saw how they were abused. And broken down, but feeling like that was their only choice, meaning, seeing that. So that was an experience for me. And that just kind of stuck with me, was just like, okay, I definitely don't want this, because first of all, I ain't trying to wear that. But that was just a reality that one thing my grandmother did not do was shield us from the truth, the reality of what street life is like. Like, don't think that it's glamorous based off of what they want to tell you. This is what it really is. And so, yes, Reginald, that was true. That really did happen. So go ahead, Horace.
No, I was going to say something to Troy. Our grandparents didn't have social media, but they had Sunday. So I can only imagine grandma made sure they had that good hat game in the South. My grandma would spend $100 on that good hat game for Sundays. Yeah. But, we have to do. Someone was talking about racism, and the black family and relationships have been strategically attacked from slavery to the women's rights movement to child support. And we never identified how some of those things impacted our relationship. Young couples right now are hooking up, having babies, and some have no intention of ever having a family. You know what I mean? So some of the patterns that we have allowed to kind of thrive in our community, they are making an impact even in the next generation. So before, when I grew up in a house with a bunch of women, and there were different guys that would come to see the different women at their house. They could come to the door. I'm telling you, these were grown women. They could come visit the house, but she wasn't in and out the house. You know what I mean? Like that. When I was growing up, I ain't that old. When I was dating a girl, I would have to go meet her mama, sit on the couch, watch a little TV. Things were a little different back then, but now I think we've allowed certain stuff to go on with no responsibility. And that's the big thing. It's too many people just having babies and no intentions of having a relationship. You know what I mean? And before, back in our times, before my parents, like if someone had a baby, you did the respectable thing and got married. You know what I mean? I'm not telling people to get married now because a lot of dysfunction out here. But back then, it was such a standard about you doing right or doing the right thing. Be a man, marry this woman, take care of your kids. And hey, you did that. Now it's like, I'll deal with whatever.
Yeah,
still out there.
I agree. I think the standards and expectations have definitely changed. I mean, it's way different. And Reginald said it. He said the younger generation can't even pull their pants up or just wear clean underwear if they're going to sag their pants, so they don't know anything about love. And that's true. I think there are a lot of unhealthy reasons why our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents stayed. Like Shana said. Conrad says results of breaking down of the Black family is what we're looking at. It's been around for a while, just not seen online more often due to social media and the internet. And that's true. I mean, there weren't any internets back in, we didn't have the internet back in the day. Like you said, we had church. That was your your grapevine circle and different things. And that's true. Women need to start asking questions about a man trying to talk to them. How many kids do you have? How many mothers of your children do you have? Have you been married? Will you ever? I agree. I think that I can tell you this is true. I had a pastor in Virginia. He was counseling a lot of the single women. Like he would have sessions with the women who wanted to get married in the church. And one of the things he said is you need to have a list of questions to ask a man that you got to vet who you want to date. He said, now you don't ask all these questions at the same time, but you need to have certain kind of questions. And he would tell us certain questions that we absolutely should ask. And these weren't just Jesus questions. These were just questions to determine if he was a good man, let alone a good fit for you as a woman. So I agree with Reginald about having these questions to be able to ask. Go ahead.
This may be a different show. This might be a ringside question, but I'm not blaming, but I'm saying growing up, I told some women last week that women set the standard and they don't even know that they do. Mm-hmm. If women right now were into church, men in the church, women were into the nerdy guy, the 9-to-5 guy, you will see more guys out there being those guys. But now, I don't know.
No, somebody's watching because I don't have my volume on.
But now, I think people are getting away from that. I know it's a shortage of men, so you've allowed the guys. We run the guys.
Yeah.
So if you guys know, men need women. We're gonna do whatever y'all tell them to do, or whatever y'all mandate in.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I got to put on my public health hat right now.
Oh, you got feedback.
I got feedback?
Yeah, that's you. I think that's you with the feedback.
Can you hear it now?
Yeah, that's better.
Might be short.
Yeah, it might be a short.
Yeah, this damn thing. I was gonna make a social media post. I was gonna tell these fellas. I was like, look, we're in the middle of a pandemic.
Can't hear you.
Oh shit.
Your headphones are giving you trouble tonight.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can hear y'all without the headphones. Okay.
Okay, right.
I was gonna say that some of these guys, and this is no diss to Horace or anybody else that's rocking a beard, some of these guys are going to have to choose between wearing a beard and a mask correctly, because we're in the middle of a pandemic and wearing a mask is going to save your life. It's going to save the life of you and whoever you live with, siblings, parents, whatever. But I I understand that for the last 4 or 5 years, beard gang has been a thing. Like, women have been going crazy about they need a man with a long beard, and they can't date a man, unless he has a beard and stuff like that, which I'm like, to Horace's point, yeah, women do set the trend as far as what men do. A lot of times we do things because we feel like, okay, this is what women want to see. Women want to see the tattoos. Women want to see the long beards and the facial hair. So if women want to see it, then we got to do it. We want to be attractive to the women and so on and so forth. But you guys be on the lookout in the next couple of days. I'm gonna make that post. But I've seen some guys with long they look straight out the Bible. They look like shepherds. I'm like, okay, some of y'all gonna have to choose between wearing a mask and that beard, because y'all can't wear that mask correctly with that beard, 2, 3, 4 inches off your face. So you're gonna have to make some choices.
I see it.
I had a girl.
We do these things in addition to other things, because we know, okay, this is what women like to see. And I know for a fact that women do the exact same thing. You have a lot of women, unfortunately, to their detriment, you have a lot of women who are going into debt, spending a lot of money on surgeries for butt implants and breast implants and tummy tucks and all that stuff because they feel that's what men want to see. And some women, unfortunately, are losing their lives because they are becoming incessant with they need to go under the knife and get a certain body, the perfect body that is attractive. And some of these women are disfiguring themselves and even dying because we're saying because we like a thick woman, we like a woman with a thin waist and a fat ass. Personally, I'm a boob man myself. That's just me. I'm a weirdo, but it is what
Hey, Troy, but remember, you don't recall the dread in South Florida used to be the dread era, where I had a woman probably about 12 years ago tell me she only dated a guy with dreads. Women will tell you, I only date a dude that has dreads, and I'm like, well, other than the dreads, like you don't know nothing. You just dated a guy with dreads,
right?
And you had dudes start growing dreads. So they got power, they don't know it.
I mean, it was like that. Remember? I mean, I think we're all in the 40 category, whatever. What was it 20 years ago when everybody was doing cornrows? When D'Angelo came out with that video, then every dude after that started growing cornrows.
Yeah, like cornrows was new.
Right, like cornrows, it was trendy because you had dudes that were bald headed, and 6 months later had cornrows, just grew cornrows.
Listen. Dudes are wearing units now. Shout out to Kev on
stage
his unit.
And his unit. Talk about
Chico Bean.
Unit.
Look, shout out to Chico Bean who balled everywhere but the top, and
I can't stand it.
What he got, he used. But shout out to Chico Bean, man.
Hey, do what you got to do. Hey,
right. Okay, so I want to get into what Miss Anna says. She says the foundation was laid differently back then. Now people lack patience and understanding to build strong relationships. It's now based on the what you can do for me mentality, not a collaboration mindset to build together. She says they tried to put out the shortage of they try to put out the shortage of men change the leverage. It's really fooling these women into believing they have to accept less than. I agree. I absolutely agree. And my question was, how do we change the narrative of the expectation that's out there? And Conrad says, becoming a community again can change the narrative. Reginald says, by denouncing and aggressively shunning poor behaviors, which makes the Black community look like jokes. And so Hollywood and advertisements stop promoting the outward person. I think that all of these are reasons, but I think I think it really does boil back to community. I think we're living in the greatest moment for Black people, for the Black community to come together and really start taking control of the narrative and controlling what happens and how we're presented. But how long this lasts is the question, and how we keep it going matters. And I think it's definitely about a mindset shift, and it's not easy, as we know, to try to change folks' mind about nothing, unless it's a fad or a trend.
Well, let's evaluate how powerful TV programming and the media is right now.
That's why I always go back to it.
Give you a good example. Couple months ago when COVID first hit, people out there running buying toilet paper for no reason. They didn't even know. Wait. So now you actually got COVID returning. You actually in hurricane season, and you ain't listen. You would think that people have hurricane supplies, toilet paper, and all that stuff. You know what? Because the media hasn't mentioned it, you don't see nobody, out there in the stores tearing them up. It's just amazing how we allow the media programs and trending stuff to really maneuver people.
It's very manipulative. It's very manipulative. That's why I believe that it's important for us to control our narrative. So when we talk about representation matters, we can't just say it as like a buzzword. It can't be a buzz phrase like diversity and inclusion. You know what I mean? Like it really has to be a thing that is promoted. Like we really have to do something that actually communicates who we are and what we want to be communicated about us. And I think that's the challenge. And I agree with Reginald. Our people, Black people, are the ones who are taking their paycheck to showcase what they're showing. If we don't jump on every chance there is to be on TV for a piece of a check, regardless of the narrative that is going to depict of us, they're going to keep doing it.
Here's the point, though. Trends. Right now, you have two trends that really hurt us for a while. It sounded good because I'm all for Black women empowerment. But when that independent thing, I'm independent, I don't need no man, that took off in a bad way. Now you're dealing with toxic masculinity, which now I don't even really understand the argument too much, because all you see is toxic masculinity trending, and then you'll see 5 people have 5 different arguments. Right. So, we'll allow something to trend, and it's 5 different arguments, and I'm like, so what's the real
big part of that is because people don't even know what they're talking about. Like I have strong issues.
I don't even know what is the central belief or central theme of toxic, because I hear it, but I've yet to hear.
That's the point. Everybody has a different viewpoint of what toxic masculinity is. It's just like when the woman when we had the post talking about, this movie on Netflix glorifies. The movie did not glorify anything. If anything, it exposed and highlighted what happens with sex and human trafficking. But you're going to talk about the movie glorifies. People don't know what words and phrases mean. So you have trending. Things will trend because we're living in a time where we have these, everything is a catchphrase. Everything is clickbait. So people are using words and phrases and all this stuff because it's clickbait. And I want to trend. I want to go viral. Don't know what you talking about.
Entanglement.
Thank you. We'll use a word until it's dead in the ground and still don't know what to talk about. So like Troy said, toxic masculinity. Well, what exactly is it? Because 5 people will give you 12 different explanations of toxic masculinity, and they ain't talked to a psychologist yet. And not one of them a psychologist studied anything about toxic masculinity.
Who was the first person to say toxic masculinity? Was it Terry Crews or something
random on Twitter?
Feminist. I can't think of her name. And that's what I laughed about. Like, it came from a feminist. And it's like, even with that, some of them are aggressive. Some of them are. Listen, there's a feminist who talks about toxic masculinity, and I'm like, I'm confused because she's a lesbian. So the argument is a little biased. So listen, man.
You have to see, the point is you have to consider the source. I'm an academic, so let me put my academic hat on. Okay. I've been doing IRB training all day. So let me put my academic hat on. Okay. When I see foolishness online, it really burns my goat because we don't vet information. We don't vet people. Folks just repost and jump on the bandwagon, and they don't do due diligence on themselves. And now this is why we got all of this nonsense out here. And it's true. We got, song lyrics and stuff that take off. But true, we got feminists that don't agree with feminism. It's all kinds of nonsense. And the whole intent behind some of this stuff gets muddied. It's all of this. The other thing is too that I don't think people really understand that's out there. You got something called hacktivists. They will absolutely hijack anything and turn it and twist it around. So whether it's Black Lives Matter, Me Too, feminism, whatever, they'll hijack it. They'll twist things around. So you got to do your own due diligence and not jump on when you see these terms like toxic masculinity. Do your research. Go talk to a psychologist. You can read. You can go to Google Scholar and look up what it means for toxic masculinity. Just type it in Google Scholar, and it'll give you academic research based on that subject, so you know what you're talking about, rather than being out here on the internet like you some internet doctor. Okay, y'all talking about stuff ain't got lick of credentials and don't know what you're talking about. You sound crazy.
That's Twitter. That's Twitter all day.
Everything that you see as gold on Twitter, social media, on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, MySpace, wherever clickbait exists, and all of it is meant to get you caught up in your feelings. And so people get a lot of the responses are super emotional, and the whole point is to get an emotional response. And what does that do? Just further divide the community. And now you hate black men and don't even know why you hate black men. Because some random woman on Al Gore's internet done created some narrative about black men and toxic masculinity, or this person in toxic masculinity, or that, because they throwing around a term that they probably saw somewhere and didn't really fully understand what it meant.
Hughes.
Yeah.
So, we done got off a subject a bit.
But but some of it, but if I feel like every black man that's out there is toxic, but this one that I had wasn't, maybe I might go back and give my ex a chance because he's the lesser of all evils.
I heard someone told me years ago, they said, this is a grown, educated doctor, said, sometimes it's better to deal with the devil you know versus the devil you don't know.
Whoop.
And some people feel like, well, I know the ex. I know them like the back of my hand. I know them better than they know themselves. And so for that, you have some people that use as a justification, like, you know what, let me stick to someone that I've already figured out. I figured out to the point where they're predictable. I know what they're going to do before they do it.
Right.
Versus the whole, when they talk about the X factor, some people feel like the X factor, what is X? X is the unknown. So you have people that feel like the unknown is what's ahead of you, that you go out to the dating world, you got a lot of pretty faces, you got a lot of people with, pretty smiles and nice bodies, but you don't know them. You don't know. They could be pretty on the outside and dysfunctional on the inside, or, that person that can take you on a beautiful date, they look good and treat you well at the beginning, but once you peel back the layers, they're an abusive person, or they're selfish, or they're bad with money, or they haven't figured out their own sexuality, whatever the case may be. Right. So there are pros and cons to either direction you're going, regardless if you want to go back and date an ex, or if you want to move forward and move into uncharted territory. It can be good and bad, in both directions.
Right.
Yeah. I think if you, and that my stance today is totally different from probably a couple of years ago. I just believe that while you have time to get it right. Even if you guys don't get back together, I just feel like you always got to have those unspoken conversations. And in the day, you're fooling yourself. If your heart is still with somebody else, you can be with somebody else. But how effective is that new relationship going to be if your heart is still with the person that you just left? Excluding domestic violence or rape or something like that. But I really believe that right now, everyone keeps running from relationship to relationship. I wasn't the problem, and they go to the new one, and then they get a little relief because they haven't had to peel the layers back yet. And by the time the person find out, they may have some issue down running to the next relationship. Take time, dig in, and have that conversation. So if you was with somebody before, and you guys didn't work out for reasons of ego, arrogance, or maybe you guys weren't in the best time because somebody mentioned timing. Hey, don't say there's no chance of it, because you may be too ashamed to say I still love this person or I want to go back because you're scared of what your friends will say. F your friends. If you know your heart is still there, man, you're just gonna be robbing yourself. So go back and have that conversation, or at least let the person know, like, hey, I know I effed up, but I think I see where I went wrong or we went wrong, and let's at least entertain the conversation. I'm willing to get on that probation trail. Go ahead, Troy.
Yeah. I just want to address something that Anna said. A lot of people feel like, well, the ex is an ex for a reason, and that's true. If someone is your ex, they are an ex because of a reason. Sometimes the reason is just and legit. Sometimes the reason is it could be spurious. It can be vain. Sometimes an ex is an ex because you cheated, or I cheated, right, or we weren't, or someone was too immature at the time, or someone you can have someone who is an ex because you felt like you needed to leave the relationship because you needed to go out and sleep with other people, explore, see what else is out there. Because let's be honest, you have people who are in relationships. They'll stay in a relationship with you because until they find something better. People date sometimes because they're looking a better deal. I'll date you for right now until something better comes along. I see someone better, then boom, all of a sudden this relationship is not good enough, or it's not you, it's me. So I do feel like sometimes, that could be the case in certain instances with an ex. But I don't think there's anything terribly wrong with looking back. And if this is ex from years ago and they've grown up, you've grown up, if they're now, it's one thing if the ex is still the exact same person. They were back in 2015, they were irresponsible, they were bad with money, they had a wandering eye, or they even when they were in a relationship with you, they were still thirst trapped, they still craved attention. If they're still that same person today in 2020, then yeah, leave them alone. That, you know what, you were an ass, you were a jerk, you were immature back then, you're still immature today, done deal. But there is an opportunity for discovery, because some people do, let's be honest, some people grow the fuck up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes going through a bad relationship, going through the hellish terrain of dating to realize, you know what, I didn't do my ex justice. I was immature. I didn't grow up. I was still trying to be a boy when they were expecting me to be a man, or whatever the case may be. So
my eyes are bigger than my stomach because it's a smorgasbord of Black love deliciousness that I can.
A lot of things.
Reasons.
It can be so many different factors but I do agree that we shouldn't delve back in our past or even be in a rush to go out forward in dating if we can't stand to be alone. Get into a relationship to make you happier. Don't get in a relationship to make you happy. That's the problem. If you can't stand being alone, if you can't stand to be around yourself, what makes you think they can be around you? So I do agree with the point that we do need to use alone time, use single time to restore, figure some shit out, figure out what exactly is important to us and what we're willing to compromise, what we're willing to not. There are certain things now at my age that I can compromise. There's some things that I'm like, you know what, that is a deal breaker. I'm not going to compromise on that. If you do this, if you are A, B, and C, or X, Y, and Z, that's three strikes right there. Keep it moving. You're dealing with it.
I agree. I think that there's so much that goes into the X factor and all of the reasons that, we've talked about as it relates to Black men and Black women struggling to love and connect, and, the possibility of going back to your ex. And for whatever reason, I do agree, Miss Anna, that, there are times when we absolutely need to be alone. I don't think that we need to be jumping from one relation to another. I don't agree with that. Oh, the best way to get over one is to get under another. I don't agree with that. That has never worked out well for me. I think the best thing that ever worked out for me was when I made myself do the work necessary to heal from the hurt and brokenness of a previous relationship. And that positioned me to be open for the next person and to not transfer that trauma, that pain, all of that onto the next guy, because he didn't do it. All of that and that self-reflection and that time to look at, okay, what part did I contribute? Because it's not all just the other person. And I agree with you, Troy, that there comes a point where you do grow and there are still some deal breakers. What was a deal breaker for you 10 years ago? You might compromise on now, but you got a new deal breaker because you like, nah, I'm a different person now. I'm not fitting that. That, you know what I mean? I think that when you make time to do that self-reflection, to do that work to heal and come through, I think that it works. I agree. The heart wants what it wants. I think self-improvement, if it else has happened, a second chance absolutely can work because you've done the work necessary for you. But I think it also is two people in a relationship. And at the end of the day, Horace made a point about doing the work on himself. And even if you don't get back together in a relationship, it's clearing the air and that space of knowing that, you know what, ain't no hard feelings, no ill feelings. We done moved on. We don't work together in a relationship as a couple. But you know what? We done cleared the air. I've done the work on me. And, this is how we can move forward just as human beings together. Go ahead, Hughes.
I want to say, when I came out of my last relationship, it was a long, long relationship. And, I knew in hindsight is 2020. That's why I tell you, when you've given 100% and when you've not, there's a lot of pride. There was a lot of ego. Sometimes both people are scared of getting hurt. So no one really puts their 100 in.
Agreed.
But when I left that situation, I can honestly say I got clowned by more women because once I left, once the relationship was over, my heart was still there. And I would actually tell women like, hey, I'm not dating. I actually told a few women that I was celibate, which had women like, well, it really actually made them want me more. But, to the fellas.
Because you were off limits. It's something that I can't have.
I didn't get the support because in my mind, the fellas was giving me hell about that. It was like, you didn't let a chick, you let that chick do this to you. And I was like, it wasn't about her for the first time in my life. It was about me. And I needed that because, at that time, I'm gonna date you and I'm still thinking about the other person. My heart is still with the other person. Even if no matter how the situation ended, you need that closure. Or you need to have those real moments. Right. And I actually had a lot of difficulty from my inbox with different women, even some of her friends that were like snooze you lose type thing, where like they were on me. And I was like, no, I won't even be disrespectful after the relationship. Like, I'm not, to be honest, Troy, I'm not a piece of meat. You get to a certain point where what you've experienced and you can't really go backwards. But I needed that time for me, simply because there was a large chapter which I grew. But I can look and say hindsight is 2020, so I can take more humility into something else. And even though it hurts you not being with the person, to be able to say, hey, you want the person, but you do wish them happiness. Now that's where you really want to be.
That's growth.
Well, to that point, I mean, because I'm gonna use what Dr. A just said as far as growth. It's funny how today in modern times we can acknowledge our smartphones, iPhones, Android, whatever. You can have a BlackBerry. I don't care what you have. We can acknowledge the fact that every 6 months our smartphone goes through an update.
That's right.
Yeah. Our technology goes to an update. There was an iPad one year, the next year's iPad 2. Right. Then it was Android S10, Android now S20. We can acknowledge that technology updates, it upgrades, it goes through evolution. The same Android you have today, it wasn't operating the exact same way it was operating in 2019. It wasn't operating the exact same way it was operating in 2018. But we fail to understand that human beings can go through the same updates.
Wow, that's a good analogy.
Today, in 2020, I'm not the same person I was in 2019, not the same person I was in 2018. You do have.
So since COVID, you ain't the same person you were 3 months ago.
Right. A lot
of
things.
That's amazing, Troy. That's amazing.
We can, it is the possibility that people can update their maturity, update their manhood, their womanhood, their masculinity, their femininity. People can evolve. Right. And so that's the reason why I can't totally discount the possibility that going and dating an ex can't work, because it can work if people have done the work, if people have grown, if people can acknowledge we're an ex because of this reason. Right. This is the reason why that when we dated in 2014, it didn't work. We split. Right. Now, if that reason is still present, is still active, and is still very much around, then we're not going to work out. Right. We just need to learn from it. We can be friends. You do you. Best of luck in all your future endeavors. Right. But if the reasons why we broke up in 2014 no longer a factor because you got your shit together, you matured, you realize, hey, this isn't what I need to be. This is what you need. This is not what manhood is. This is not what womanhood is. If in 2020 those issues that were issues back then are no longer issues today, then we can express interest in maybe doing a sequel. Because let's be honest, sometimes a sequel isn't. Sometimes a sequel is better than the first. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's not. But we don't know.
Rambo.
Well, Will and Jerry.
The Rambo series. I'm sorry. That Rambo 2 was way better than Rambo 1. Was
way.
And I'm trying to be funny, but I like Creed 2.
Creed,
I like Creed 2 better than Creed 1. Now, I'm not saying Creed 1 was good, but
I bought Creed 2. I got Creed 2 on my phone right now. I didn't buy Creed 1, but Creed 2, when Ivan Drago's son
come on.
Y'all too.
Don't do that. Be nice.
I like the Commando instead of Rambo, but
Yeah, I mean, but that's the truth, though. You know, when you look at it, sometimes, like Troy said, he just giving us all kinds of good analogies tonight. But the truth is, the sequels sometimes, when you come back the second time around, there are instances where the sequel is better. But at the same time, like Reginald said, if they still playing the same games,
They still
and
playing
that
the same
means what
game.
you know what that says to you? You have not grown and matured. Just because you may have grown and matured, but that other person has not, and they have not. Okay, no harm, no foul. Trust me, it's somebody out there, like Reginald said, you can meet the right person, and that person will absolutely restore your trust and in people and relationships, and you'll be open to love again. I think that's only after I think that's possible as well. When you do the work to work on you, to self-reflect, you'll be open to receive that love. I agree. Sometimes the sequels are better because the producers learn something. And that's what we're saying. If you learn something in the process and you're willing to make the necessary adjustments, okay, but it's when they learn and they still don't do nothing and they still come out trash. Like, go sit down. Like, I ain't trying to be funny, but Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, that didn't need to be a whole movie. But okay.
Oh, that movie sucks.
You know what I'm saying?
Tokyo
That
Drift
didn't
sucks.
need to be a whole movie. They could have wrote a quick scene into another movie and that would have been done. So sometimes we don't learn, and other times we learn and make adjustments because Triple X, look at the Triple X series. So we can go on and on with examples and examples.
Look
and
at Police
examples.
Academy. If y'all remember
Woo! Police Academy. Okay.
But I mean, you can. Let's be honest. You can learn. Learning is not enough if you don't apply it. You can have a head full of knowledge and head full of wisdom, but if you don't apply it to your real life situation, relationships, whatever, then really, what's the fucking point? You might could have kept that. But at the end of the day, you're right. You know, if you're willing to look back and you can see, okay, this is where we messed up with the first movie.
Right.
This is where we messed up with the first marriage. So if we can acknowledge, okay, I was wrong in this aspect, you were wrong in this aspect, we've grown, we've matured, then we can try it again with new producers, new directors,
right.
a new storyline, and let's see if we can make this sequel more successful than the first.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
Look
Sometimes
at all
the
them Hope
sequel
movies.
is worse than the first.
Listen, look at all those Hope movies.
especially when you guys had a relationship where you were best friends. Those are the relationships I really hate to see fail because,
right.
You know, you guys may not be, you know, lovers, but you knew you had a real friendship.
But I think that's where your point is, even if we're not compatible for a relationship, coming back after you do that work to clear the air so that you can have that friendship again. I think that's critical because that also gives you peace in your spirit to know that, you know what, I can be the bigger person. And if nothing else, if they don't receive what I'm trying to do to make peace, that's not on me. But now that's also part of the work that you do for yourself to be open for whomever is going to appreciate what you have to offer because you're putting it out there.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
It's been an amazing conversation, you guys. I appreciate you all rolling with us. It was a great conversation.
It's been amazing. Trey Amazing is what I do.
I know. Right.
That's what
you
showed
didn't
up
put
tonight.
that out. You just put Troy, but you didn't put Trey Amazing tonight.
Dr.
But
Vaughn,
that's
I'm
already
trying
know.
to be professional, but that was a mistake on my part. It's Trey Amazing, everybody. Part-time.
I expect to see Trey Amazing August 7th.
Amazing.
We need to see Trey Amazing August 7th when we go dark.
August 7th, that's the day after my birthday. Oh, I'm gonna be lit.
That's right.
I'm gonna be naked, covered in baby oil and drink.
He says that for every after dark, and then he come here dressed and stuff. He might have a tank top on. I'll believe it when I see it. And we don't know when El Jefe is gonna come. We don't know if he's gonna be man law, captain. We don't know if he's gonna be El Jefe. He's gonna show up. He might show up in a smoking jacket. We have no idea.
Look, I'm gonna put my Cash App out there because I want some monetary appreciation.
Well, I'll be out of the country, so I'm gonna be tuning in remotely.
What country is accepting you?
I told you I had to leave this place.
You must be going to the Caribbean.
I'm not mad at
it
that
ain't
one
but
bit.
too many. It ain't but so many Caribbean. It ain't but so many countries letting folks out, letting Americans.
10 of them. It's 10 of them.
It's 10 of them. So you going to one of them 10.
Yeah.
Right. Well, enjoy. I know, Lord Troy, exactly, Lisa. Lord Troy, exactly. We're going to see. And with him, with Towns being in the Caribbean somewhere, he might be on the beach, and I ain't no telling what we're going to see with that. But you all, thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. It's been an exciting conversation. There's so much that we covered in just talking about the X Factor and some of the challenges with why Black men and Black women struggle to connect, to love one another. And, if it is truly slim pickings, which it really isn't, it's just a narrative. What are the possibilities of connecting with your ex and the X Factor? And Troy really hit it on the head when, with the analogy of the X Factor. So the X becomes an X Factor. So you have two different things. And there's always a possibility for more, for you just never know. When you grow and mature, you have no idea what that opens up for you. And so our next conversation will be After Dark. That's August 7th at 10 p.m. That's a Friday night.
That's my birthday show.
That's Troy's birthday show. So we have
I'm on the knife now. I'm on the knife
God,
too.
we got both of y'all together. Jesus help us.
That's why we jail.
Y'all, it's gonna be a great one. And don't bring back Rona LJ. I know that's right.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a Leo episode. It is all about Leo. I am definitely a lion because I love to devour the women I'm with. So it is definitely going down. Okay, eat them whole.
Listen, Karen, you should look at my the Chicago skyline in my background now. So
yeah,
I get around.
Yeah. You're getting all kinds of compliments. Put your Cash App and info and PayPal up next time. Absolutely.
Yes.
Reginald said he's on the 20th. Oh, y'all finna have a good old show.
Yes. It is all about the Lions. Okay. It is all about the Lions. I got no disrespect to everybody else, but it is all about the Lions. I love to eat them from the front and back. Okay. So I clean my plate, and I'm hungry.
What do you say?
Straight up.
This is gonna be sexy, ladies. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I can say. It sounds like it's gonna be one of those.
Karen.
I'm
gonna make sure I'm gonna do some push-ups before the show so I can be.
If you have not, Reginald said Simba, and I'm done. This is why I love our audience. He said Simba. I cannot with y'all tonight. We love you guys. Y'all are the best audience. We really appreciate you. Y'all have your own conversations, like, share, repost, have your own watch parties. And until the next show, August 7th.
If you're out there, if you're on Facebook, please search Ringside, join the group if you want to get down with some of these crazy debates that we're having on a daily basis. We're outspoken, over the top, and opinionated. Join in. We try to keep it above the belt. So, but if you want to get down on some of these crazy topics, just type in Ringside. If you can't find Ringside, you can find me, Troy Vaughn. Me and I'll add you to the group.
Yeah, we got some topics. He posted one today that I'm still thinking about gender roles and traditional relationships.
I love the topic of tradition because it's very volatile, and I love talking about tradition. I'm not a traditional person myself. I'm flexible. I do what I want, but at the end of the day, I love talking about it because it's a very, it's a very salient issue, particularly among African Americans. So I think we need to dive into it balls deep. So get down on it.
Yeah, Ringside is absolutely lit. So thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. Catch the replay, watch, share, have your own watch parties, talk about it. Get in the comments, chat with us. I'm gonna be in the comments responding. Please send lots of love and light to Jeffrey and Epiphany. We love you guys. We miss you. And we know that things are going to work out. Everybody tonight, have a fantastic night. And we'll see y'all next time.
All right. Eat ass, everybody.
Be yourself.
I can't do it.